Hello, welcome to the Connecting Life podcast. I'm your host Dianaboskma, and I'm here to help you connect the dots between health, nutrition, mindset, and everyday life, helping you build a healthier, more fulfilling future, one step at a time. So, grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's episode. Today, I want to continue with the Microbiome Spotlight series, where I'm exploring traditional foods that have nourished people from around the world for generations. So far I've talked about sauerkraut and kefir, and today I'm going to turn my attention to a food that many of us have sitting in our fridge, and maybe even right now, and that's yogurt. Now, yogurt is an interesting one because unlike some of the traditional foods, it doesn't feel exotic or unusual because most people have heard of it. For many people, it's something they eat regularly, some people even on a daily basis. And in supermarkets, you frequently see whole aisles dedicated to it. So, that's perhaps a really good reason to have a look at it, because sometimes the foods that we see every day are the ones that we know the least about. So have you ever stopped to wonder how long people have been eating yogurt, or where it first came from? And also maybe why so many cultures around the world developed their own versions of it? So I'd like to explore that story a little bit. Because yogurt is much more than a convenient breakfast food, because many of us eat it at breakfast, some also at lunch. So it's one of humanity's oldest fermented foods. So just think about living about 1,000 years ago. There were no fridges, there were no freezers, there were no supermarkets, and fresh milk would spoil rather quickly. So, if you're caring for animals and producing milk, preserving the milk becomes incredibly important. So many historians believe that yogurt was discovered by accident. We'll never know. So milk stored in containers exposed to naturally occurring bacteria and warm temperatures, then the milk starts to change, and instead of spoiling, it thickened and it developed a pleasant, tangy flavor. And people then discovered that they enjoyed it. And what began as necessity eventually became a tradition. And those traditions have spread. So over time, yogurt became a part of daily life across the Middle East, Central Asia, Mediterranean, Eastern Europe. Sorry about that. And also other regions. So different cultures developed different ways of serving it. Some people, they served it plain, some added herbs to it, some added fruits to it. When I was growing up, that was pretty much the standard. My mum would regularly do yogurt with, for instance, peaches. It was pretty tasty. I still have good memories of that. And other people would drip it, and then you get a thicker cultured food like labneh or something. But despite all these differences, the basic process remained pretty much the same and quite simple. Milk, culture, time. And that's one of the things that I really love about traditional foods. They're often a lot simpler than what you can imagine. In our modern world, we're constantly being told that health requires complicated solutions like special powders, special programs, special products. But many of the traditional foods that we still use, they relied on little more than simple ingredients and a bit of patience. And yogurt is an amazing example of that principle. So one thing that I find very fascinating is how yogurt appears in both sweet and savory dishes. Like in many Western countries, as I already told you about the peaches, people often think about yogurt for breakfast or a snack. And, sometimes it's with overnight oats and things like that. But in many traditional cultures, it was used differently. So it might be served alongside grilled meat, and sometimes mixed with cucumber and mint or other herbs. Like the cucumber and mint can become tzatziki, which is very common in, for instance, Greece, but further down as well, or sometimes under names, but that doesn't matter. It's still the same principle. And there's also soups that it gets added to or used in sauces. I know that a friend of mine, whenever she makes korma sauce with chicken, she always uses yogurt with it, and it tastes amazing. And, sometimes it's also enjoyed as part of a larger meal. And because it's that versatile, it makes, for a good reason, that yogurt has remained popular for such a long time. It adapted, well, the yogurt didn't, but the cultures that it was used in, they used it in different ways, different ingredients, different, even different cultures, as in the yogurt culture, because when you look at Bulgarian culture, Bulgarian yogurt or Greek yogurt or just standard yogurt, they're all a little bit different. So whenever we talk about traditional foods and microbiome health, I think it's important to remember the bigger picture. Because no single food creates health on its own. Traditional cultures didn't rely on one special food. They tended to consume a huge variety of foods throughout the year: fermented foods, fresh foods, animal foods, seasonal foods. And those foods were prepared using methods that have been passed down through generations. And yogurt was one of those. And it was a small part of a much larger traditional dietary pattern. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, because instead of thinking, what's the perfect food, it's maybe better to ask, how can I bring more variety, more tradition, and more real food into my meals? And yogurt can certainly be a great part of that journey. It's easy to enjoy. It's even easy to make at home. It's easy to include in everyday meals. Sorry about the cough. Somehow, now that I'm talking, I get the tickles in my throat. So, as I said, it's easy to include in everyday meals. You can enjoy it with berries and a little bit of honey. You can blend it into a smoothie that's really tasty. You can make a dip with it. You can choose to drip it first so that it becomes a bit thicker and then add the herbs to it, or you can right away do it and it's a thinner dip. Both are really nice. You might use it as a base for homemade dressing, which can also be really tasty. Some people do that with grape pieces in there as well. That's also really yummy. And when you start thinking about it, there's so many options. It's almost endless. And slowly but carefully, we're getting to the end of this episode. And I want you to think a bit about it. Yogurt has been around for thousands of years. In that time, empires have risen and fallen, trade routes have changed, technologies have transformed how we live. Yet, we still make and enjoy yogurt. And that's a kind of longevity that's really cool, because food trends come and go. Traditional foods do endure, as you can see, because kefir is just as old. So maybe one of the reasons that they endure is because they meet a genuine human need. They nourish us and they connect us to our history. And they also remind us that some of life's simplest pleasures are often the most enduring. So I want to thank you for joining me today in this Microbiome Food Spotlight. If you'd like to have the quick reference guide that I've created, you can download it. It's for free through my website. And in that you'll find some practical, serving ideas, storage tips, and just a little bit of microbiome wisdom in just one sheet. So until next time, take good care of yourself and keep nourishing yourself really well. Bye-bye.